What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Way podcast. We're excited. Brand new year. We even got some new faces in the podcast. Erin, who do we have?
Just one face.
Oh, sorry.
Right? Just one.
Some new last names, though.
Hey, there you go.
That's right. You're basically a new person. What happened to make you a new person over the break?
I also got married. But so did Ethan.
Yes, I did. And I'm new in the studio, so here I am.
I know. New year, new
us. New year, new us.
Guys.
This feels so good.
Okay, so Ethan, you're new on the podcast. Tell us some things about you.
Some things about me. I'm no longer a Texas Tech student. I'm now Texas Tech alumni.
Oh, wow,
That's why I'm here in the room.
That's rough.
Yes.
I'm finally qualified for this. I guess.
In the middle of my first year doing this, I now finally qualified.
Do you have a college degree, though?
No, I don't. I'm still unqualified.
So that doesn't qualify you.
Well, I've been deceived. But, yeah, and I also got married over the break. So it was an eventful Christmas break.
That's exciting. Man, y'all had a big winter. Big winter for you guys.
Yeah.
Big winter, big winner.
Hey.
That's me.
That's good. Well, so today we're talking about dating. Is that right?
Yeah, we're talking about dating.
True story.
And Ethan, you're new and you just got married. Do you mind sharing with us first date? Maybe.
Yeah.
Fun
Good
date.
question.
Either one. Dating. Tell us something about you dating your now wife. A story. I don't care what.
Yeah, we'll start from the beginning. First time on the podcast, we'll go with the first date. My first date with Liz. So actually, I'd met her at a basketball game like a month before.
Tech
I asked her out. Yeah,
guess?
Texas
Okay.
Tech versus ACU. Met her at a basketball game. Then Christmas break happened. Come back from Christmas break. It's January. I go to a game with her friends, and she's there. I kind of planned that out. But after the game, like a day or two later, I had Snapchatted her because I had her Snapchat. I'm not even sure how I got it, but I had her Snapchat. Snapchatted her after I went to the gym and I was at the car wash, so I felt like real confident. Snapchatted her, said, "Hey, do you like have time to grab lunch today? Like, I'd love to get to know you." And she said no. I asked her out and she said no. So, but she said, "Hey,
Proud of her.
I can do dinner tomorrow." I was like, "Oh, whoa!" We just went from lunch to dinner real quick. So I was like,
"This is gonna be
100
casual." It's
yeah,
not
exactly.
casual.
100%. I'm in. I even wore jeans that night. But
That's a big deal.
I
For
know.
Ethan? Yeah.
Yeah. So we ended up going to dinner the next night. We went to Chewy's, our favorite restaurant. And then after, this is where things get kind of weird. At the end of the date, I asked for the check, and our waitress tells me that the check has been paid for. I was like, what? That's okay, cool. I mean, I'll take it. So we tipped her a little extra because I didn't have to pay for dinner. And then I walk out to the truck, and I open the door for Liz. And then I have like one of those bed covers on my truck. And then my bed cover pops open, and my roommate jumps out of the bed of my truck. And he's like, "Where am I? What year is it? Who are you?" And then he just runs away. And so like I'm like opening the door for Liz.
She stayed with you?
Yes. So I open the door, and then this happens. And then so I walk around the truck, and she gets out. And then all my friends are like in a car in the parking lot, like videoing. So on the first date, she meets like my whole friend group like this. And then after I was like, well, I didn't have to pay for dinner, so you want to go get dessert? So we went to Bahama Bucks and got snow cones, and then went back to my house and played Mario Kart with my roommates. I think we watched the movie God's Not Dead, and then I took her home.
Classic.
So
Classic.
that was our first date. Yeah.
I've not heard that story.
Yeah,
That's
I have.
You should
so
tell that one
good.
more.
I have video proof of my roommate jumping out of the bed of my truck.
Wow.
And-
Great example of a first date story.
Yeah.
I was
That's
not
pretty
ready
good.
for that.
I know. That's how I knew I was gonna
Yeah.
marry her, because she stuck around.
That's a good sign.
I knew.
She made it through this, she'll make it through anything.
Exactly.
Man, that's good. Well, so today we are talking about dating,
Mm.
and we're going to try to go through. We've got a lot of questions because we know that you guys have a lot of questions about dating and how should we do it, what should that look like, all this stuff. Real quickly, just to kind of intro this question, if y'all have feedback on this, I'd love to hear this too. But one of the big questions about dating in general is just simply, is dating biblical?
Mhm.
And in short, no, it's not, because it doesn't happen in the Bible. We don't
Right.
see dating. The way that they did dating in the Bible is very different. You know, you would have parents that would arrange marriages and stuff like that. The only other exception I can think of is when you have Jacob, who goes and he's looking for a wife among the right people or whatever that his parents have said he should go and marry. I think his mom. But he finds a girl and he courts her, and it doesn't look like dating, which is why he marries the wrong person first. It was a fun story.
Like
y'all should go look that
for
up.
years.
Yeah, y'all should go look that up.
Just to get the wrong girl.
So dating itself is not a biblical concept, because the people in the Bible and the stories in the Bible they didn't date. That's not how they got married. That's not how they found their spouses. But in our culture, we don't really have that. My parents weren't like setting me up with women that they had vetted, that they knew their families, and we're like, hey, this would make a great spouse. You should marry this person. My parents didn't do that. They told me who I shouldn't date, and they were like, hey, this girl that you're with, bad idea. But that was about it. Like there wasn't other stuff. And so dating, while it's not biblical, it is also just how we in our culture find our spouse. Like that is kind of the only way that we have, you and I as people in America, to find a spouse. And so with that in mind, dating, while it's not biblical, it still can lead to a godly marriage. And dating in and of itself, I don't think is an evil thing, even though bad things can come out of that. But our hope today is to talk about how can we as believers date in such a way that we do find a godly spouse, that we treat those that we date well, we honor God with those things, and hopefully through that and doing that in a wise way, being led by God, we would find our spouse. And the people at this table have all gone through that. Probably not perfectly. I know that I did really badly at dating. I did not date well for the most part. But now are in marriages where we can look back on the ways that we have dated, good and bad, and see how God was present in those things and have brought us to God fearing spouses who are wonderful additions to our lives. So our hope, honestly, in this, I looked at the camera, but whatever. Not supposed to do that. We can cut all this out, right? Probably. Right. All right, good. But our hope is that through this conversation, we would give you guys good tools, good questions to ask of yourself and of those that you are dating, to figure out, how do I find a spouse that will make a good partner for me in life? So with that in mind, let's first talk about entering the relationship.
Yeah.
What is it? Because
DTR, baby.
Yeah. How do we actually, because many of you, and we're going to talk about, how do I do this once I'm in a lot of you are asking, how do I get to that point? How do I get into I am trying desperately, looking for, that might be part of your problem is you're desperate, but I am looking for somebody to date. Let's talk about, what does it look like for us to enter into that? How do we start a relationship? So first, how do I decide who to ask out? What exactly am I looking for to find the right person to ask out? What do y'all think?
Well, remember we last semester, we did a couple podcasts. We did on
subtle plug.
Yeah, subtle plug on what every guy is looking for in a girl and what every girl is looking for in a guy. So if you haven't listened to those, go check those out. We interviewed some students. They're really great. But I think a really great place to look is to scripture and to define just kind of really great qualities in someone. And if you're looking for those qualities in someone who you're going to spend the rest of your life with, then maybe that could be a really great outcome. So I've got one. If y'all don't mind me reading it.
Please do.
Ephesians 2:3. He says, let's see, it says in the NIV, it says, be completely humble and gentle, be patient, bearing with one another in love, making every effort to keep the unity of spirit through the bond of peace. And really it's talking about obviously unity in the body, but how a healthy community gets along. And man, I think if a guy that I was pursuing or dating or whatever, if he had these qualities, this is admirable of a guy. If I'm dating someone and he's ugly to other people, he's always putting other people down, then how do I know that he's not going to do that to me or even behind my back? You know what I'm saying? And so someone who's humble and not prideful, I think if I'm in a conversation and he's always talking about himself and always worried about himself, just super unattractive to me, to be honest.
Fair.
So,
that's good.
Yeah, I'll keep it short and simple. When looking for how do I decide who to ask out, I'm thinking Proverbs 27 verse 17 mentality of, as iron sharpens iron, one man sharpens another, and you want somebody that's going to sharpen you in what matters in life and pursuing the Lord. So if there's somebody that is going to help you grow closer to the Lord and help you hone in on your skills and your disciplines and your walk with him, then that's like step one of what you're looking for. And that if they don't do that, then they're not going to do anything else that's going to like that we're going to talk about in this podcast episode, if they're not bringing you closer to God.
Yeah, that's really good. I think that one of the things that both me and my wife, we were looking for was somebody who we honestly thought was further along in their walk than we were. We were both trying to reach, we were both trying to be reachers.
Yeah.
But man, I think that is great. So kind of continuing along with that, so let's say you find somebody, go back, listen to those episodes, then come back to right here. If you're not in a relationship, go listen to those episodes first. But let's say you have found somebody that you think you like, you think that this person is the right answer. They fit all the stuff that we're talking about. How should you go about asking them out? What does that look like?
How should you go about asking someone out that you like?
Yeah.
I went for the, like we heard earlier, I just sent a little text. I'm not saying that's what you should do every time because I just so happened to have her Snapchat. Yeah.
Did you know Liz before? Like how well acquainted were y'all before?
Not like at all.
Really?
Yeah. Like, well, we had talked at that basketball game, and then I knew a lot of her friends from church stuff. So she had like sources that can say like, oh, he's like not a terrible dude. But yeah, we had like texted a little bit for like a day or two. And then it was on like that third day that I just was like, I'm going to shoot my shot. So my mentality was like, I know that she's in Christian community and I trust the people around her. I was like, okay, that's good. I think she's really pretty. So I'm just going to ask her out. And if she says no, then cool. Guess I'm taking a break from dating a little bit
longer than I thought.
A little longer than I had planned on it. But I just kind of shoot, I guess.
Yeah. You saw somebody that looked like they met and you just went for it.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I think it's helpful. I think guys, you're less likely to get a no when it's the case where you're like, my friends know the person. They can vouch for their character, that kind of a thing. Because I think what always, like, truthfully, you would get a no easier for me if I just didn't know who you were. I'm like, that's kind of strange that
some
you don't
rando
even
comes
know
up, shoots a shot.
I don't know who you are. And it's not even like, I know that last year in the singleness podcast, I was like, just go to coffee with him. It's fine. I'm coming back off of that, like, opinion because I'm like, I don't think you have to. Yeah. I don't know. I just was like, if you don't really want to go, you don't have to go. And also, but it's also not that big of a deal, I think, at the end of the day. If it's just like, I don't know, it can be confusing, which is why I am leaning more towards like, go if you're interested. But like, it's an easier yes from me if we have friends who are friends. We've been hanging out as friends for a little bit. We know if we like each other at some point, if there's any attraction. So
really, it can go well either way. There's not like a biblical, hey, make sure that you court them for 11 years and make sure that all these things you talked with their stepfather, their father, all these things. And you have
all the goats to give
to make sure
to
to purchase them.
And
That's not great. Yeah, we don't do that. Probably one of the good things that we don't continue to this
don't
day.
even know to get those.
But either way, I mean, it can be a shoot your shot moment where, man, I've talked with this person. They seem awesome. I'd love to get to know them more. Or it can be I've spent a lot of time with this person. We've developed just a friendship together, and now I would like to try to step forward. Either one is okay.
Yeah, at that point, if you do want to date them or you don't, or if you're like, nope, you're my friend, and that's where you'll be.
I do think on that note, I think one thing that you can take to apply this is just be clear. Like when you're, I keep looking at the camera, whatever. I hate cameras. They love me, but
be clear.
Be clear. Yeah. Like if you are interested, whether you choose to do it in a moment, like right after you've met that person and you just want to see, or if you've built a friendship with them and you want to see if this is something they're interested in doing more of, then both ways, I think what you need to do is be clear. Just express that you are interested. Yeah. If it's super subtle, if they don't get the hint, whatever, it's going to drag out and it will be painful for both parties. So be clear, I think, is something that you can apply to both
clarity
of those.
is kindness.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
I don't know if I've heard that or if I came up with it, but it sounds good.
We'll just assume that you came up with it for the moment.
I've heard it. I remember it was before or after our singleness podcast, because I touch on this in that podcast last year. And there's, I think, a couple of times that somebody had reached out. It was like out of the blue. I had not been asked out on a date in years. And then all of a sudden, after the singleness podcast, people are like, oh, she'll say yes to coffee. And I'm like, no, not always. But Tyler had a really clear way, and that was so helpful for me to communicate. So like a really good friend sat with me and was like, this is what you need to say. This is what's going to honor them and you. And if you want a copy of that text, I will send it to you.
If you're not interested.
If you're not interested and you're like, I just want to be kind and I don't want to seem rude. Like I want to honor God in my response, but I really don't want to go. Like, I just don't see this happening. Just like you said, it's important to be clear and be gentle and honest, but still be firm, because if not, they're going to be like, so you do want to go one day? Like there's hope? And you're like, no.
Who is Hope? I've never met her.
So
when it comes to this idea of asking people out and all that stuff, like this is a great way to do that. Who should ask who out? That's a question that we also get a lot. Who should ask who out? Like, does it matter? Like, does the Bible say does the guy have to do that? Should he? What do y'all think?
I don't think it matters. I don't think he cares. It never happened to me, but I thought it would have been awesome if a girl asked me out, but never happened. So I guess
it's rough.
Yeah, it's okay. But I don't think it matters. I think the more common thing is for the guy to ask the girl out. That's what we see most of, and I think that's okay and makes sense. But I don't think the girl's never allowed to ask the guy out if she's the one that's interested. Like, because then that almost like she's like, I just have to wait for him to finally notice me and be interested in me. When for the guy, it's like, well, I have no idea if she like wants anything to do with me.
I don't want to make her uncomfortable. I don't want to ruin a friendship, whatever.
Yeah.
But the guys are always like, all right, I'm gonna go shoot my shot. And then they get turned down. But girls, they're always like, I'll just wait. Let's even the playing field. Girls, go ask him out.
Erin, what do you think?
Yeah. I always wanted to be asked out. And there, I think there's something sweet about a guy who's gonna like build up all this courage and like risk being rejected to ask me out on a date. And it's like, I think sometimes guys will wait around and they're like, I wonder if she's going to ask me out. I think that might be a sign of a guy not wanting to step up at all. Yeah. Like if he's not going to step up and ask you on a date, will he step up in any other way? I mean, I know that's like a really early on.
Like if you lose your pencil, you're not going to finish your homework. You're going to fail.
That's exactly it. That's exactly
now you're
where
homeless.
I was going. Now you're homeless.
If you don't ask her out, then you're going to be single forever.
That's it.
And you might not have a home.
I will say for me and my wife, she actually kind of confronted me. I was not clear about my interest, and she kind of confronted me about that. But I was the one who asked her out, so it was a little bit of both. It was kind of a combo. I like that. So I think it's okay I actually think it's okay for a woman to ask a man out. But there's that
in the Bible, right?
Ruth is pretty forward. She's forward, yeah.
Hey Boaz, I'm interested.
Yeah. That's a good point.
She made the first move in that, and she made it in the text. And
but there are also good things about a guy pursuing a girl. Like I think that can express good intentions, that can set a good foundation for a relationship. So really depends. I think is kind of where we fall on that. It depends.
Yeah,
well, so a little bit more serious. Let's start with if I have just gotten out of a relationship. So let's say you're between relationships, you've just ended one. Should I start dating again immediately, or when can I start to date again? Is there a rule on that?
I don't think there's like a specific timeline of like, okay, we broke up, it's been 6 months, now I'm ready to go. Yeah. Or it's been 2 weeks, now I'm ready to go.
Our culture does have a rule. It's for every year you've been in that relationship, that's a month. I think that's
really.
I think that I've heard something like that. I could be wrong, but I think I've heard of like however long your relationship is, that should change the amount of time between relationships.
I think that makes sense.
So if if you're in a relationship for 2 years, you have to wait at
2
least
months?
2 months.
I think so. It may be
Yeah.
something like
That
that.
feels quick.
Yeah,
That does
I was
feel
gonna
fast.
say, I know a lot of girls
I
that are
think that's on
listening who
track.
are gonna be like, hateful, and my heart's still broken, and I can't believe that
Yeah.
you're okay.
It's only been 2 months.
Yeah.
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 What does that say for our relationship?
Exactly. I don't know.
That's
I would agree with you on this specific timeline. I think the question to ask is, why did y'all break up in the first place? Was there cheating? Was there some sort of hidden sin that you're like, okay, we need to break off until we can heal from this?
Yeah.
Like, you've got to ask those questions. And if you have not done the work with the Lord in your soul and probably in community to heal from those things, do not date. I think you should not be dating. And then once you've healed from those things, I think with wise counsel, you go to some mentors and you're like, okay, I've done this deep work over time with my community. I'm interested in this person.
Yeah.
Is this a possibility for me? And I think that's when you can be championed into dating, and they're like, yes, definitely do that. That's a great idea.
No, I think that's so good, because if they broke up with you for a very specific reason that you were at fault in, there's probably some work that you need to do. And if you haven't done any of that, maybe you're not ready to step into another relationship. Maybe you're just preparing yourself to go through another breakup and hurt that person and or yourself at the same time. But if you broke up with a person because you realize, man, this person doesn't love the Lord like I thought that they did, I don't know that you have to wait an extreme amount of time before you're ready to step into something new. So I think that's good.
And I think this applies to what our next question is. Travis was explaining to us, like, and I mean, we could all agree. We get the question a lot, like, can I start dating somebody if I'm wrestling with this porn addiction? Yeah. Do we think this is a good idea? And I would say no. Don't. Like, please do the work to get freed from that addiction, because those we've said this before, but the things that you have and the sin that you're dealing with in dating, in singleness, if you get married with those and you haven't done that, they just become marriage problems, right? Yeah. And so just being and doing the work to get free is going to be so valuable as you're, starting to date and then moving into.
And if that's you
season.
and you want to get free of it and you recognize that, grab one of us on a Sunday night. Yes. Set up a meeting, text us throughout the week. We would love to sit down and have a conversation with you about what it would look like to step out of that.
Absolutely.
Last question. This is I think a pretty easy one, but just simply, we get it all the time. Can I date a non-believer?
No.
I'm going to say no. I think this is just a real easy answer. No, the Bible says, "Do not be unequally yoked with an unbeliever."
2 Corinthians 6 for you.
I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, the question is, can I, as a Christian, date a non-believer? Just for clarity.
Yeah, if you're a non-believer listening to this, then
you can probably date. You probably have better luck with an unbeliever.
Yeah, we don't want to talk to you about dating. We want to talk to you about Jesus.
Yeah, exactly.
So still come to us on Sunday night.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah, but and we have that question all the time. And I really do think that if you are a believer and you are asking that question, you know the answer.
Yeah.
You want a reason to not have to stick to
yeah,
that.
You want
an excuse to get out of it. So cool. Well, moving into the second half. So let's say hopefully some of those questions were helpful and they've actually helped you to fend off unwanted relationships and eventually step into a relationship that you have been looking for. What does it look like to actually be in that relationship? So we've got some questions that I want us to walk through. First and foremost, when should I say I love you?
Ooh,
this is a
L-bomb.
Whoa.
Yeah,
And we were talking about this and we all said I love you at very different times.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
In our relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of y'all don't know, which is just funny full circle. Last year when we recorded our relationship podcast, I was single and then I met my now husband like 2 weeks later, which is crazy.
You heard it here. If you listen to our relationship series, you will meet your spouse. That's
I think
within the year. Within the year.
Okay.
So yeah. So and we're both 29 and we both have full-time jobs. We both know where we're going in life. We both are madly in love with Jesus. And we were just like in a place that we're literally on our first date. I was like, if you become my girlfriend, it's because I'm planning to marry you at some point. These are my clear intentions with you. And I was like, Okay, great.
Pressure.
And so I already knew that this was a serious relationship from the beginning. And so for us going into, I mean, we said, I love you. He said it first, a month in.
Wow.
Yeah, a month.
5 months for us. I think
Okay.
that we actually had a very similar start like
Yeah.
that. We had the marriage conversation up front of like, hey, if we step into this, it is with the goal of marriage. And I'm not saying that if we start dating, we will be married, but that is my goal. And she agreed. And 5 months later, she said it and then immediately pretended she didn't. But she said it first. What about y'all?
For us, I said it first, and it was right at about 11 months of dating. So
Man, that's 1, 5, and 11.
So I held out for a while, but I have my reasons.
Yeah.
No. Well, and I think that with all those stories in mind, there's obviously not a specific timeline that you have to stick to say I love you. There's not. Maybe there's not even necessarily like all of these specific boxes you have to check off before you can say it. Rather, what I would encourage you to do is ask, why are you, if you're about to say I love you, if you're considering saying that, whatever, broaching that with your partner, why do you want to tell them that I love you? Is it out of a place of deep love and a desire to commit to that person, or are you trying to do it so that they will stick around to make the relationship more serious? Like why are you trying to say
or to get to the next step too soon? I mean, I feel like that's what people say to cross boundaries. Like, but I love you. Can't we just do this instead? Yeah. And I want to give the caveat, I guess, of like, I know that we're talking to college students who are from the ages of like maybe 17 to 21. And so you're still young. I know that you don't think you are, but you are. And so
Erin would know.
Yeah, I would know I'm old. And so I for mine and Al's story, it's very different because we are adults. I mean, years into our jobs, been patiently waiting on the Lord for who we're supposed to marry. So I'm not advising that you say I love you after 3, maybe 4 weeks. And so please don't do that. If you are considering doing that, ask some wise counsel. Ask, hey, I feel this. Is this a feeling? And
they should ask you why. Why do you want to say that? They better ask you that.
Yeah.
If your friend asks you,
because like, what does it mean to say I love you? Like, I mean, the question, like, is love a feeling, or is it like, man, I'm ready to go through every hard thing in life with this person. I'm ready to, sacrificially live my life in a way that is we're going to go after the kingdom together.
I actually think this is a good distinction to make. Something that should set us apart as believers who are dating. We're going to talk about this, I think, at the end of this podcast a tiny bit, but I really strongly encourage you, students, as believers, when you choose to say I love you in a relationship, make sure that it's for that reason. Like, because we say I love you about all kinds of stuff, and for very small things. I love Cheetos. They're okay. What I really love are the lemon thin Oreos. I love those.
Oh yeah,
lemon?
Those are good.
Oh, they're so good.
Those are good.
But that is not the same thing as how I love my wife. Like, and so I think in culture it's very easy in dating relationships to ease into the I love you really easily or really quickly because it's, well, I have a strong affection for you. Yeah. You're great. I really
We've watered down the word a lot.
Yeah. And so I really think that as believers, we should bring back that meaning of, hey, when we say I love you to somebody that we are in a romantic pursuit of, it should be because we are saying, hey, I desire to decide to be with you, to stick with you through thick and thin, to push through all of the difficulties of life, to encourage you to pursue Christ because I choose to love you deeply in this way.
One of the valuable things, I think, as I've just been processing everything with the Lord, and I did get married after a lot of my friends did, I've been able to look in and thankfully get a glimpse into their marriage and just see all the good, bad, and ugly. And truthfully, I think time-wise, if anything would have happened too soon, if I would have done something, I don't know what the Lord actually had for me, that I just don't know that. I don't know. And we're going to have to cut this because I just lost my thought process.
That's okay. We'll leave it in. It'll be good.
All right, I got something here. And I just want to clarify. When I said that I waited 11 months to say I love you, and it was for reasons, it was not because of Liz and something like that. My reasons.
I just wasn't sure.
No.
I don't
It
know.
was not. I thought as soon as I said it, I was like, well, I already started this sentence, so here we go. But I want to clarify that
Oh, yeah.
it was not because like I was very like cautious and concerned. There were not red flags waving, but the reason was because I dated a girl freshman and sophomore year of high school, and it was less than a month in, and I said it accidentally, and that relationship was not honoring the Lord at all. And in that relationship, when we broke up, it like hurt the most out of all my breakups that I had, because I'd given so much of myself to her through. We crossed physical boundaries, but also I thought that I knew what love was, and that I thought that like we talked about marriage, and I was 14 when we started dating. I was so dumb. But from saying the word like I love you, there was so much more weight and so much more riding on that relationship in my mind and in my heart. I think that's why the breakup was so much harder, even though I was like 15 years old and she was 16 when we broke up. And like, so I waited. I told myself that the next person I say I love you to is going to be the woman that I marry. So basically, whenever I said I love you to Liz 11 months in, that was like a free engagement ring, basically, which it was over 2 years of dating that I proposed. But at that 11 months was like, okay, I confirmed that this is who I want to marry, and this is a healthy relationship. And my mom had also told me in middle school, which I wish I remembered in 9th grade, but in middle school, she had told me that, because I got my first 6th grade relationship, and she was like, just so you know, like, don't say I love you to somebody until you can fully say that you love yourself completely and you love the Lord completely. Whenever you have those two things in check first, now you're ready to love somebody else.
Very good.
And I think that I didn't have that until I was dating Liz for almost a year, to where I could finally say, you know what, I do love you, because I know that I love myself and find my value in the Lord. And I love the Lord above all else. And
That's awesome.
that's why I was like, okay.
That's so good.
That
Your
is
mom
good.
told you that in 6th grade?
Yeah, we were walking in the
That's
mall,
good.
because my friend was
That's a
joking,
good mom.
because I just started dating a girl, and he started like singing the song. It's like, I fell in love in a hopeless place. I don't know if that's the beat or rhythm or whatever,
No, I think that was spot on.
something like that.
I don't know
but
what song it is, but
yeah,
Rihanna?
yeah, it's a Rihanna song. We fell in
Oh,
love.
I do
in
know
a
that song.
hope-
Okay.
I was
I
really
like
off if you didn't recognize it. It's popular. But I was singing. I told her about that joke, and she goes, "Well, just so you know, like, you did not fall in love. You are 11." So walking through the Dillards of the Abilene Mall, I learned
That's
what love
good.
was.
Are the lyrics I fell in love or we found love?
We found love. That's it.
Okay. I was like,
yeah.
no, maybe I'm wrong.
No, I just don't listen to Rihanna. So that's
I think that's
probably
okay.
why.
I think
That's
I give you a
okay.
pass for that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
But
No,
that's
good.
my clarification on why I waited 11 months.
So let's say we have because this is a good topic. This talking about love. When do I say that in a relationship? When should I? How should I? All that stuff. But how do we know? Let's say a month in, 2 months in, whatever.
Mhm.
How do I know if I should stay in that relationship? Like, because I think a lot of our people do get into relationships. This has been me. Get into a relationship and I stay in that relationship too long, waiting for something bad to happen or waiting for it to get better. And it's almost always the first one. It always gets worse. How do I know a month in? What should I be looking for after the first month of dating to know, hey, this is the relationship for me, or this is not?
Yeah. It's like, what's the
Not that you have to know you're going to marry that person a month.
right?
But,
Yeah. It's like, what's the red flag count?
yeah.
Like, I mean, how many red flags have you had since
But
in the first month of dating?
Yeah, I mean, a month in might be a little too soon for
Yeah.
the love goggles to come off to see a red flag. But I guess what the people around you are saying, like,
Yeah, exactly.
but that's not going to help you if you're not in like Christian community who's like in the word together and who like can give you good advice. So if all your friends are out partying and getting drunk and sleeping around and doing all these things, of course they're going to think it's fine if you're in a bad relationship. So one, you want good people around you who are going to push you towards God. And if they don't like them, then it's like, okay.
That's a bad sign.
I also learned that once they meet your mom, ask your mom what she thinks, because my mom was right every single time.
Yeah.
I don't know how.
That's good.
But the mom always knows. The friends are a good place to go.
I also think that a good one is, are they the same person that you were pursuing initially? Like, do they, because I think of a guy when I was in college who was kind of a spiritual mentor for me, and I thought incredibly highly of him. He was awesome, and I just really looked up to him and respected him. And he started dating a girl, and like within 2 weeks, he was like, oh, like, he went after her because he was like, she loves the Lord, like she's involved in church, she does all these things. And he said, as soon as we started hanging out as a couple, I began to see who she was outside of the church, and it was not who I thought she was. And so he broke it off, which I always thought that was such a cool example of what it looks like to know, okay, this is not it.
Yeah, and that's hard to do. I mean, I know that when we went through our premarital class at IABC, our executive pastor, Tommy, told us that it's never too late to like step away until you say I do at the altar. Because I know like even a month or two in, we're like, oh, we're like already this far in, like we maybe crossed some boundaries or something. Like I feel like I can't go anywhere. Like we can't break up now. It's gonna hurt too much. But like until you both have a ring on your finger and say I do, even if you're engaged and things are not like matching up, it's not too late. But once you make that covenant and that marriage, like that's whenever that's when there's no backing out of that.
Yeah, that's good.
I have a really unique story in that I was single for 10 years. And so for a while I was feeling like pretty hopeless. And which like full circle, this is just really just showing how amazing the Lord is, and just hearing my prayers and then my friends' prayers and my family's prayers for my life. But a few years ago, a pastor in Austin asked me to truthfully create a list of characteristics that I wanted in my future husband. He was like, seriously, Erin, leave out every physical like dream you have about your husband. I want characteristics. And so I didn't do it for a while because he told me that he's prayed for people to find their spouse, and then the Lord gives them their spouse. And that terrified me. I was like, oh my gosh, because I had also heard, once you make this list, you've got to check this list to make sure that you are this person too. And I was like, oh my gosh, what if I make this big lofty list and I'm not this big lofty person? And so my friends hear this, and my friends in Dallas, and they sit me down and we're like, we're making this list for you. And so we make this list, and 2 years ago, and I send it off to him, and he's like, thanks for sending it. I'm committing to praying for this list. And I know that he prayed for this list all the time. And so the craziest thing is when I met Al, and we started hanging out, and, you know, we went on our first few dates and all this stuff. He starts saying things from the list that I had, like very specific things. Like our story is like we did a puzzle to get to know each other, and our friends would hang out there too, and they'd be like, Erin and Al are doing a puzzle, and we're trying to like be quiet so they can like, you know, whatever. So he was like, oh yeah, it doesn't take much to like get me riled up. I'm a pretty gentle person. And I like was having a mini heart attack because I put on the list, that was one of the things that he's like, that he would be a gentle person, and that he would be. And then I remembered that was a list because I made that 2 years ago. Yeah. And like I had been praying, but like God knew that because somebody else had been praying that list, and those girls in Dallas all have, it's a shared note. So they've all been praying for this too, cool. Which is pretty cool. And so after like our, fourth or fifth date, probably I remember going to my bed and I started crying because I've gone through this whole thing, and he's like either said or done or is any of these things. And it just felt like truthfully the Lord moved him from Tennessee with these characteristics, and something in me was like, there's peace here. I can stay in this relationship because this is all of these attributes that truthfully were very biblical. Yeah. And then for fun, I think I remember a long time ago, which is kind of crazy too, that he would be tall, have blue eyes, facial hair, and was an athlete. And now, if you know him, is tall, has blue eyes,
so
has facial hair.
If you haven't made your list already, go ahead and start writing down these things that Erin.
I mean, it's just
That's
kind of
funny.
cool how God cares about those details.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I'll bring, I mean, I've not really shown the list to a lot of people, but the girls know, like, I've not changed a thing.
No.
And we did not obviously know Al 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And he's literally all of these things. And so it's just a testimony that, like, God cares.
Yeah.
Yeah. And knows, like, who you need partnered up with you
Mhm.
in life. And so,
That's good.
yeah,
That's good.
I know. Kind of cool. But
So our last kind of couple of questions on this, boundaries. When and how and what boundaries should you be setting up in your dating relationships?
mhm.
One specific one is when should you have certain conversations? I think this is an emotional boundary, right? But
Mhm.
when do you have the conversations about the baggage that you are bringing into a relationship?
Yeah.
I think easy thing to say on that is not first date.
Yeah.
Please don't dump all of your sin trauma
Yeah.
on some poor girl that you are taking out on your very first
Yeah,
date.
I know the Christian guy thing is let's go get coffee and share our testimonies.
Yeah.
I don't recommend that one.
No.
I mean, maybe like a soft, brief overview, like
Mhm.
PG.
Yeah,
But
yeah, you don't have to dredge up every single trauma that you've
Mhm.
been through. That's not a great
Yeah.
idea. I think you do need to have that conversation at some point.
Yeah.
I don't think the first date is the time or the
Yeah.
place to have that.
oh
Yeah. Just like asking yourself what is going to be the most helpful. Like, I mean, on the first date, what helps them get to know you?
Mhm.
And then as you like this is part of, like, we're in the relationship series right
Yeah.
now. It's part of guarding your heart. Like,
Yeah.
if you are trauma dumping, like, on your first, second, even third date, I would say, like, pump the brakes. You don't have to, I mean, not everybody needs to know every single thing about you.
Yeah.
There's still some, like, really traumatic things that have happened in my life that Al knows about them, but he doesn't know all the details about them. And he doesn't, I don't know that he really needs to, you know, it's not, I don't know if it's necessary.
And I think you want to balance that out with, you also don't want to hide stuff as
Correct.
well.
Yeah.
And so
Mhm.
as you begin to go throughout your dating relationship, you should begin to have those conversations. And maybe that looks like setting a date. Hey, a month
Yeah.
in, I'd like to start having some of the testimonial conversations. Like I would love to spend the first month getting to know one another and focus on that. But I do want to make sure that we have this conversation at some point. So I'd encourage you guys as you're in your dating stuff.
Set the expectation early of, like, that you're not going to overshare too much, but that as time goes on, like, those walls will come down to where it is appropriate to become more, not emotionally dependent, but more emotionally aware of y'all's
Vulnerable,
past. And because that emotional connection, like, does make things more real and heavier. If you were to break up, it makes it so much harder whenever this person knows every little thing about you.
Mhm.
And, like,
But at the same time, if you find yourself 6 months in
and you haven't
and
shared anything,
you don't know
Yeah.
any of that other person's struggles. You don't know where they're at really in their walk. You have an idea
Mhm.
just because you pray with them or whatever. You know, they read the Bible and they have a community, but you don't know anything about them.
Mhm.
They can't tell anybody anything about you. Then I don't think that that's a good spot either.
Yeah,
So you want to do,
absolutely.
and it's a balance thing. But it's a hard thing.
because and I would avoid, even when you're sharing that, like, sharing, like, little minute details and everything, because now, like, you're making them kind of relive that, and they're having to think about that and wrestle with that, and you're making your baggage their baggage to hold on to. But so there's no need to just share every little experience and all that, but let them know that, man, you have maybe sexual sin in your past, but you don't have to give specifics and stuff. Like, I know that's what Travis, him and Carrie, they haven't, like,
Mhm.
Travis said Carrie doesn't know all the details, but she knows about his past.
Yeah.
And they have a great marriage.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's one of the things when you get ready to take your next steps in marriage
Mhm.
or in relationship to marriage, once you get to that point, that's when you will have to have some of those conversations as well. Like, hopefully there's already a base for it, but
Shouldn't be a blind side.
I will say I dated one other person in my life, like, he's my boyfriend, and Al has a past, and I don't know anything about any of those girls except for the last girl, truthfully, and I don't really know a lot about her. And a lot of that is to guard my heart, and he's basically communicating to me, you are literally all I care about. I don't want to talk about old stuff like that. But in talking about sexual sin, what about physical boundaries? When should in the dating stage should our friends who are listening start to communicate physical boundaries?
Day one.
Come
I was
on.
gonna say
Day one.
pre-date. I think pre-date. Actually, when you were asking
Really,
him out,
pre-date?
I think you can have that conversation.
Yeah, I think
But-
so.
Will you
if
go out
you
with me
haven't
and
had it-
also?
Yeah, maybe not if it's like the first little get to know you.
Oh, yeah.
But
Yeah.
if you're actually
Well-
both in pursuit of each other, I think,
Yeah.
because
If you're at the point of we're gonna date now.
Yeah.
Yes.
you want those boundaries, because it's not like this girl's never met you and you asked her
That's
out.
fair,
You're going to
that's
get
fair. Okay,
coffee.
maybe
It's
not
like,
pre-date.
by the way, I don't want to kiss until 2 dates in, and we're never gonna do more than side hug. And so, well, that wouldn't work if you kiss.
No.
Yeah.
No.
But
I think you're scaling.
whatever.
If that's the way.
But now
y'all
that
did it.
chick, she's out the door, and you just paid for her coffee, and you're never seeing her again.
Yeah.
At
But
least if
I
I'm
think
her.
it's important, and I would really hope that the guy would lead in this conversation,
Mhm.
saying like, "Hey, this is how I want to lead us well. That we're not gonna have sex together before marriage. We're not gonna move in together
Mhm.
before we're married. Whatever your boundaries would be."
And if he doesn't broach that subject, I think you say it. I
Yes.
think you
Yeah.
and
Step
if
up.
that is his sign of, hey, this isn't gonna happen in this relationship, then
Mhm.
and that's what he's looking for, he will leave.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if he doesn't bring that up, bring that up.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Absolutely. What about something small like who pays for food?
I think the way that Liz and I did it was, if it was just us and we were on like a date, then I would pay. If we were in a group
Mhm.
or like went out to lunch with friends after church or after a basketball game or something, then we paid individually. That was just to protect my bank account.
Yeah.
What Bible verse did you pull that from? Was
I did
that
not pull that
proper?
from a Bible verse. I just pulled that from, this makes sense to me.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like I'm paying for 2 people all the time whenever
Yeah.
we're not married. But
Yeah.
as like once we were engaged, and even like when we knew we were going to be engaged and married, it didn't matter as much, because
Yeah.
it's like our finances were basically coming from the same pool
Yeah.
of money.
Yeah.
And I guess ours is a little different, but the way that we did it, I mean, first date, I think guy should pay. If he's asking you on the first date, he needs to pay. But then after that, like if I planned a date, then I paid for it. And if he planned a date, then he paid for it.
Yeah, that's
and
good.
we were just
Cool.
kind
I
of
like
like
that.
sharing. I know.
Yeah.
Well, I was like, I really want to go do this. And I was like, I'm going to treat him tonight. I'm going to pay for Berkeley Hill pizza.
And I think there's something so good about being willing to have as the guy, as the man, being willing to pay for that. Like, I think
Yeah.
that's gentlemanly. Like, I think
Mhm.
that's kind. I think that's respectful. I think that's honorable.
Mhm.
All these things, those are good things. But at the same time, I think it's important also. You're not married. You're not spouses. Like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
it's not his responsibility to financially care for you. If she is making you pay for like expensive dinners on a regular basis,
Don't run yourself broke
Yeah.
just to
don't
get
go
a girl
broke.
or just to get
if
a
she
guy.
cares more about you providing her with fancy dates than she does about like sitting down and getting to know you and building a relationship
Mhm.
with you, that's a red flag.
Yeah.
That's a couple of red flags, I think. I think there's
Mhm.
3 or 4.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. All right. Well, we are almost out of time. Let's look at real quickly. So let's say you're at the point in your relationship, you tracked through all of this, man. Like
Mhm.
you picked the right kind of person. You found somebody who
Mhm.
loves the Lord and is loving you well.
Mhm.
Y'all have advanced
Mhm.
through your relationship. You've shared the stuff at the appropriate time. You've said,
Mhm.
I love you. You have your budget figured out so that you can afford to pay for all those dinners, or she helps, whichever works for you. You've had all of those conversations. You've done all of that stuff. And you realize, man, I think that this is the person I do want to spend my life with. What does it look like to figure that out? Let's talk about forever. That was what we had written down. In the
Yeah.
sheet, so I'm
Yeah,
not
that's
gonna
good,
say
that's
it.
good,
Let's
that's
talk about
good.
forever.
I like it.
So on that note, why do Christians get married so fast? This is a pretty common thing that you know, ring by spring.
Amen.
If you're on a Christian campus, LCU I know has this every spring.
Yeah,
It
every
happens a lot.
spring.
Why do Christians get married so fast? Is that true? Do Christians get married fast, do you think?
Yeah.
Typically, yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
a pretty safe statement.
And I think in the South. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
My family in New York, when I was in college, they were baffled by how many of my friends were getting
Mhm.
engaged, and just I was in so many weddings, and they were like, I don't get it. And I'm like, well,
I think it's because Christianity does place a high value on marriage.
Yeah.
Of like, this is the closest thing. What Ephesians 5, is that where it says that, like, it's as Christ loves the
Christ
church,
loved
a
the
husband
church.
should love his
Mhm.
wife. So
Yeah.
this is the closest thing on earth that we experience to Christ's love for us and for the church. So we put a high value on it. And if you know you want to marry somebody and spend the rest of your life, then why wait like years?
Yeah.
Why why have temptation for a longer amount of time? But I think that's one of the reasons.
Yeah. And I think if Christians, and I know it gets joked about a lot, is like, oh, Christians want to get married so they can have sex. For sure. Because we know that, like, well, like, yes.
Amen, brother.
Yes, but I mean, it gets joked about because people are like, oh, well, they just want to have sex. And yes, that's true. But also we're trying to honor God in our relationships. And we know that the correct design for sex and the way it's intended is for marriage. Yeah. So yes, we want to get married so we can enjoy all the things that come with that. And yes, sex is one of those things. And we're going to talk about that even at our sermon this weekend. But sex is so important. It's not the only reason Christians are getting married fast.
No. It's like a small percentage of your marriage is that actual time. Yeah. I'm finding that out. I'm a month in. It's a small percentage.
I already figured it out.
There's a lot of hours in the day.
Yeah.
I also think kind of what y'all are both saying as well, like marriage is also kind of the goal for romantic relationships among Christians, right? Like, I mean, because if you're an unbeliever, like you can be romantically engaged in whatever form or fashion you want, and it's okay. You can, if I really, really like this person, well, it's financially better for us to just move in together. Yeah. We can live together. We don't have to be legally married to do all these things. But for believers, like, that is the goal of a romantic pursuit. It's not even necessarily just sex. It is sex within marriage. Marriage is the goal. And so I think that it makes sense that as believers you would, well, if I know that that's what I'm working towards, I don't have to waste 20 years, dating the same person when I know that marriage is what I want to do with this person. So I think that makes sense on
that's great
logical level. Well, so let's say this is the other way. So forever. So we've got the forever. What if the forever is for never?
Oh.
That's good.
What if forever is actually for never? You decide this person that I've been dating, I think that this is not it for me. How do I break up with them? Yeah. We've defined the relationship. We're in the midst of dating, but it has to end. What does that look like?
I know I have forever with someone, but not this one.
Not this one.
Yeah.
That's good.
It's just a matter of being honest with yourself and like what you've prayed for and initially asked God for. And then if they're clearly not that person, I know that heartache is really hard to get through. And I know that that's a very real part of breaking up with someone, and you don't want to hurt that person, and you don't even want to feel that pain, and maybe you even have stayed in it too long because you're prolonging that feeling. Man, I think you grab your best friend's hand and you pray, and then you go do it, and then you go back to that best friend, and then you sit and cry and pray until you just feel better. Because you don't want to marry the wrong person. You just don't want to marry the wrong person. It's just the reality.
Well, I think, Ethan, you said this earlier, like something about the fear of, I've already been in this relationship for so long. Like, what if, like, I'm already in it, or maybe you were talking about this, but like, I've spent all of this time, I don't want to waste it.
Yeah.
Well, it is so much better to get out of that relationship.
Yes.
That time is not wasted. I know it can seem like that, but you will waste your time if you know that this is not the person for you and you choose to stay in that relationship.
Right.
Yeah, it's not a waste of time until you prolong it to the point where you know you're not supposed to be with them.
Yeah.
That time after is what becomes the waste.
That's good.
Not the time spent before where you're learning, this is not what I should be doing.
Yeah.
This is not who I should be with. That's not the way.
This is not the right person. This is not who I thought I was. Kind of the same thing, I think, with the how do you tell somebody you're not interested or whatever, but I think you just be gentle in that breakup. I personally think that you should have those conversations in person. I know a lot of people that do it through text or phone call, but I think you should have that conversation in person, especially if you've been with them for a while. I think you owe them that. Be gentle, be clear. I think you be firm as well. Yeah, I think you can be honest, but be firm in that decision. Don't let them talk you in or out of whatever. Yeah, stand on that. Make it clear. Don't string them along. Don't well, let's take a small break and we'll come back.
Don't give them the God told me. It's not you. It's the be honest.
Just be honest.
Don't use the God cop out.
So last question for today. when should we take the next step? I've decided this is the person for me. I believe that God has brought us together, has grown us in this relationship. I love this person. I've told that person I love this person. When do I decide it's time to get engaged and to get married? How do I know?
I'll just answer this question really quick. But I think, one, yes, we've taken all the steps. We've said we love each other, and it's actually true. The version of love that I described earlier. But also our families affirm us and are excited about it. That isn't always the case, but hopefully it is. And then our friends, our community is affirming of us. They're like, okay, this is a great guy, this is a great girl. Definitely makes sense. Our church loves us. The people we're a part of are just celebrating our relationship. I think that's a huge part. I say then you just go for it. Start saving guys for a ring. And
can you afford a ring?
Can you afford a ring?
Yeah, that's a big one.
It's a big
and can you afford to not be relying on your parents once you have
what
that
will it
ring?
look like for you to care for, provide for each other?
Scripture talks about a man will leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife. That means financially.
Well, in Song of Solomon even talks about how the bridegroom will go and prepare a place, right? Like he goes and he prepares a home for his bride. I'm not saying you have to go build a house, but can you provide a home for one another? What does that look like to live your life, the two of you cleaving to one another apart from your family?
It doesn't mean you have everything figured out, and it doesn't mean that you have like a $50,000+ in your savings account.
We're not saying you have to have this income is what is required.
No, the money is not the main driving thing that's like, once I cross a line with that, now I'm ready to get married. But I think that is something that should be taken into consideration, because like you are now responsible for her, and people cost money, and people are only getting more expensive because this economy is not our friend right now.
Well, guys, I know that there are a lot of questions that we did not answer because there's just so many. We cut questions out. We had so many other ones that we know that you guys want answered. If there are ones that we didn't answer, send those to us, and we'll see if they make it into another podcast. If you have pressing questions that you need answered, reach out to us. Let us know. Grab us on a Sunday night. We'd love to have coffee, sit down with you, and talk through some of these things with you. But hopefully this was valuable. Hopefully that there is some godly wisdom in here that we believe that there is, that will be helpful for you guys as you try to have relationships that glorify God, that you would find people that are going to help you grow closer to Him, and that one day you'll marry and have a God-honoring marriage with.
Yeah, well, absolutely.
That's it.
Yep. Till next time.
Yeah.
We'll see you.
Bye, y'all.